side little sneak peek. I have a connection between the two of them for my case
Ugh.
file, which I'll get to at the very end.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay.
Hello, cozy detectives, and welcome to the Blanket Fort Files. I'm Larissa,
And I'm Joy.
and we're here to report on all things comfy and cozy.
Thank you for waiting. Larissa is very kind, and we're like 5 minutes at least behind on recording because I needed coffee.
You're
I needed
fine.
coffee for the recording.
We
So,
definitely need you caffeinated, so
yeah,
all
honestly.
good to wait.
How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. I had a nice little fun activity filled weekend, despite it
Mm.
still being really hot here. It makes me
Mm.
very sad. As of recording this, we're getting close to the end of October, and we're still in the high 80s, 90s here.
Oh,
Boo.
boo. We have cooled down here, but not to the point of the fact that I'm wearing a pretty, I don't know what this fabric is actually called, but it's like pretty fuzzy fabric, but
So, like a
it goes with
fleece.
my, yeah, kind of fleece-esque. Unfortunately, this is the first time I've worn it. I got it at Goodwill, and it's kind of that fabric where I feel like it's gonna like stick to me,
Mm,
which I don't love, but it's
yes.
cute, and I bought it, and it works for my case file,
It
so
is very cute
I'm
and
wearing
I've
it.
never seen your case file, which I'm so excited to hear about. But I
Oh,
feel like from what I know and just seeing the movie poster, it does
it's
fit in really
good.
well.
Right? I feel like it vibes. I have so many, well, not a super amount of fun behind the scenes, but a lot of the things I didn't know about my case file. But also, I'm very excited to hear about your case file because again, it's our theme is based upon a person today. And every time I was trying to find details about my case file, if your case file came up, I was like, no, do not look at that,
I
even
feel
though
like
I
that's
love
kind
it.
of been a theme when you've done research
Right?
is all mine always pop up.
Yeah. I think it's because yours is such, well, mine's also a beloved one, but yours is like such a beloved one. I
Mhm.
remember buying at what is it? Blockbuster. They had I'm not going to say your case file. So sorry, Coach Detective. You're just going to have to hear me say the word your case file a bunch. But I remember getting your case file, but it was in a like, I have it downstairs. I should have got it. But it's like a clear DVD case. And then it was
Ooh,
like just the DVD in it. I remember being like, this is a little sketchy, but it's Blockbuster and it's 4 for $20. So,
mood. I
so I'm doing
Yeah,
it.
I have a few DVDs where it's completely just silver
Yeah.
with like the movie title in a tiny circle around the hole in the middle, and I'm always like, "What
Like,
movie is this?"
yeah, you're like, is this okay? I know I did something like that the other day. I bought a DVD series online and then I got it in and I'm like, where is this from? Is this like a legit copy? You know, when you're like,
Oh,
did someone
no.
just like record the TV? I can't tell.
Oh,
And
like
then you look
total
and you're
bootleg.
like, yeah, you're like, is this a bootleg? I don't really know because the text on the front looks great, but the text on the back, I'm like, that's kind of like a weird font. You know, you just get that vibe
Hmm,
of like, I don't
a
know
little
if
sketch.
this is legit or not. But I bought it from like a legit website, so I'm like,
Hmm.
okay,
You'll have to
devs,
report back when you watch it.
I know. I it's a hot take, but the DVD is the TV show The Bear.
Oh, I've been
And
wanting to watch it. Definitely not cozy, but I have been wanting to
no.
watch it.
And I think that's the thing, this is so off topic, but I think that's the thing that got me about the show is it had such high praise from everybody that I've known that's
Mhm.
watched it, but having, I don't know if it's just like a having worked in hospitality thing, but there was like so many things in like the first episode or two where I'm like, why is everybody always complaining on each other? Like this isn't
Aw.
hospitable. And then two, they said corner when like they could see each other. Like the point of saying corner is so that you don't accidentally bump into each other because you're
Right.
walking around a blind corner, but they said it walking around a table. And I don't know why, but that I was like, okay. It's
No, I
like,
totally
I
get
don't know.
that. I kind of just with my own work background this is more so I
Yeah.
feel like when I'm reading books, but even sometimes in TV shows, but when they get things wrong about like college admissions and financial aid, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not
You're
right.
like, So if our cozy detectives have watched, I've only like watched about, I would say 2 to 3 maybe episodes, but I've heard great things about it. And Maddie Matheson is an actual chef who's in it. And I've like, we have his book
Oh,
downstairs
cool.
about like cooking. So I'm like, okay, well, I like him as a chef. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's like the first episode or two. It's like Parks and Rec where like I've heard a lot of people say that they
You have
don't
to
like the
give it
first
time.
season, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'm like, so like for lack of a better term, do I have to give this time to cook and then I'll like it, or is it gonna bug me and they're gonna say corner and call everybody chef all the time? I don't
Yeah.
know, but oh, anyway, that was a side
Yeah,
tangent.
how have you been other than trying out the bear?
I know. I've been good. I've been chilling a little bit more at home. I don't know what it's been about like these last couple weeks because it actually has gotten colder. And I did my 2%. I did go out. I did explore. It was inspired by you. But I had all these like big oh, there's a fuzzy. I had all these big plans to do a bunch of things this weekend. And my body, like not in like a way I'm gonna get sick, but I was just like, I'm just gonna stay at home. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it
I
was like
totally
that
get
vibe.
that.
So I haven't done anything super exciting this past weekend. Oh yeah, you didn't even tell me what your weekend was filled with. I got so
Oh,
distracted by
no,
the
you're
bear.
fine. I'm the same way of just like all my brain is just always going a million places. But I went to a little fall, well, it wasn't actually little, it was pretty big, but this fall festival farm that's about like 40-ish
Mm.
minutes from me. And they had like a pumpkin patch, but what I liked is they made like
Oh,
pumpkin
you took a
caricatures.
photo.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, I've taken a
cute.
few. I only posted one on my Gilmore story, but they basically took kind of like scarecrows almost, where they have the pumpkin head, but they're little characters. And one I really enjoyed, it was a little band and they had instruments. And
Cute.
Willie Nelson, who is from Texas, they had one of the pumpkins with his like signature like braids. I thought it was really
Cute.
cute. And they had a lot of more activities for kids and stuff. But
Yeah.
for the adults, they had like a wine tasting, which was pretty fun.
Oh, that's so fun. Last year, I think that's kind of what it is I feel like for me, like I really wanted to go to a pumpkin patch. That was my like whole plan for this weekend.
Hmm.
But I never find myself buying the pumpkins from the pumpkin patch. And so that's where like for me, I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like walking around. And
Yeah.
I've been getting like pretty rough allergies. So I'm like, I don't want to walk around where there's a bunch of hay. There's a hay bale maze, which is really cool actually.
Yeah.
But I was like, not the vibe. Not the vibe for me this weekend.
Yeah, we stayed for a few hours just because there was a lot of little things to do, and they had a little
That's
Ferris
fun.
wheel that we were in line for, but it was moving. The line was moving so slow, and by that point, it was like almost 90 degrees out, and we were like
Oof.
sweating. So we're like, this isn't
Yeah.
worth it. Um, And then I did get one little pumpkin. I already had a few others that will tie into my 2% at the end. But
Ooh.
I got like a little mini kind of peachy looking one. And they had like a whole display with all the different kinds, but I ended up grabbing it from the little gift shop right before we left. And it was so funny because I was going through my bag to get my wallet and I had my friend hold it. And she was like, "Oh, this feels so realistic. What is this made out of?" And I was like, "Pumpkin." Like she thought it was just like a display or like a fake one. And I told her, and I was like, "No, this is
Oh,
real."
I know
It was
that's a
just
real
funny.
one. Have you ever? Because I went to Trader Joe's last night and I got more of my cookies because they were there.
Ooh,
Mahaha. But I've never actually taken a pumpkin and like gutted it and like used the like meat for things. Have you ever done that? Just is
yes.
there a flavor difference? I bet there would be, right?
I I did it a while ago. I mostly did just use the seeds, like did a roasted
Mm.
pumpkin seed. Because it's hard to separate that from getting the stringy bits, and then you also to like
Yeah.
scrape it to actually cook with, which you could potentially just like, I don't know, have you ever cooked squash and things like that?
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I've done like spaghetti squash. I've done like I've chunked up the what's the other squash that you kind of like just do in chunks, not spaghetti.
Butternut.
Butternut, yeah,
Hmm.
I've done that. But I don't know why the pumpkin to me just doesn't feel like I should cut it up, which is ironic because that's the whole shtick of like carving a pumpkin. But
Yeah. So if you wanted to, I wouldn't use like the big, like jack-o'-lantern sized pumpkins, but if you got one of the smaller
mm.
ones and just like probably roast it in the oven a little bit just to get it soft enough to where you could slice it in half. And then you could
Oh,
probably just cook it the same way as a butternut squash, like roast it for a while and then
whoa.
use it. I think I'm going to do this because I think it could make a really good sauce or addition
Yes.
to like a pasta or something.
Yes. This was not my 2%, but this weekend I did make from scratch tomato soup. which I had never
Ooh,
done because I
love.
was like, Larissa keeps talking about all these soups. I'm like, I need to make a soup. And I used an immersion blender for the
Oh,
first time.
yes.
I liked it.
I
I don't
got
know
one
if I
of
did it right. I was like,
it can be kind of tricky. So, I got an immersion blender a few years ago, and I won't go back to a regular blender, at least for soups. I think it's just easier when the soup is so hot, so you don't have to worry about sloshing it in the blender.
yeah. Yeah, it came with a little kind of like a thing I was supposed to put all the soup in, but I just did it in the pot, which
Yeah.
I was like, this seems fine. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I did
totally.
spill it on myself, but not like spill it, but like splashed it on myself. But I was like, whatever. That's a casualty of trying to learn this thing. But
Oh, so
anywho, now
good.
that we're a few minutes in, thanks for hanging with us, Cozy Detectives. Let's get into our case file. Is person. You want to say who it is?
Yeah.
Because you have the fun facts and I forgot. So
No, you're all
I'm
good.
excited to hear.
So,
And I love this person. Like it's basically her and Lauren Graham are like my peeps, the faves, have been for a long time.
which
So
side little sneak peek, I have a connection between the two of them for my case
oh
file, which I'll get to at the very end.
my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay.
But if you somehow just like clicked play without looking at the title, I always am like, oh, we need to make the theme this big mystery, which we literally have it in the title. But anyways, if you didn't know or forgot since clicking play, we're talking about Sandra Bullock today, America's
Yay.
sweetheart.
Love her. Love her. Okay, what are her fun facts?
Yes, I
I'm
just
like sweating. This is such a hot sweater. Keep going.
no. I just wrote down a few things about her life, mostly her early life, because I think
Mm,
her as a celebrity, she's one of those kind of like when we did Meg Ryan. It seems to be pretty
yeah.
private with a lot of her personal life. Like she's had some relationships, she's been married, she's been divorced, she's adopted a few kids. She has her
Yeah.
own production network. She has done a lot of philanthropy with the Red Cross. I think
Mm.
over as 4 to 5 times she's donated $1 million to them
Wow.
for specific causes, which I thought was really
That's
interesting and
amazing.
cool. But a little bit about her early years. While she was born in Virginia, she actually grew up in Germany. So her father was in charge of the Army's postal service in Europe. So he was stationed in
Oh, cute.
Germany, and that's how he met her mom. And because her mom is like from Germany, and her mom was a opera singer and a voice coach, and her dad I think did voice lessons kind of on the side. Like the Army was his main job,
Cool.
but he did a little bit of voice coaching. So Sandra lived in Germany and Austria for a total of 12 years growing up, and German was actually her native language. So she is fluent in German.
Wow, that's so cool. I did not know
Yeah.
that. Wow, she has like no American accent at all. Like
You mean
meaning
German
like
accent?
German accent. Yeah, sorry, I said that confusing, but yeah, that's wild. Good for
Yeah.
her. That's so fun.
And she basically grew up in the arts and performing. She took ballet lessons and obviously was involved in opera with her mom. She did a few small roles and then also was in a children's opera choir. She moved to the United States and actually went to college in North Carolina. So she holds a BFA from East Carolina University, which, fun fact, that's where my sister got her master's degree. So
Cool.
they share a
Aw,
little alma mater, which I thought was kind of fun.
that's so fun.
And she was voted back to high school. She was voted as most likely to brighten up someone's day, which I just
Cute.
think really tracks as her as a person, an
Yeah.
actor, a character. Like she is dubbed America's sweetheart. So I feel like this kind of
Really?
came across when we did Meg Ryan, but they've
Yeah.
just kind of have radiated that their whole lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I love her. I don't know why I thought that was Julia Roberts did she just do a movie called American
Well,
Sweet? I feel
they've dubbed a few actresses
like
that.
okay.
So like Sandra Bullock, Julia Roberts, even Meg Ryan was considered that. I think just
Yeah,
kind of
which I
those
could
like
see all of them, you know?
yeah. I think even like Jennifer Aniston has been called that at a time.
Mm.
I feel like that's like the equivalent of the men who get the people's sexiest man alive. The women just get America's
Yeah.
sweetheart.
Yeah, right. I did see, what was that? Was it Chicken Shop Day or something? When it was like you were voted, they were talking to Ryan Reynolds. It was like you were voted America's Sexiest Man in 2010. And then she was like, how does it feel to have let yourself go? And he like started laughing and I was like, that's funny.
Oh
Okay,
man.
back to Sandra.
Well, I just
I'm
have
all over
one
the place
last
today.
little tidbit.
Yeah.
Essentially, and this is you could just get if you look up her on IMDb, but her debut movie was actually a thriller called Hangman, and it was in 1987. So it's just kind of interesting because she's more known for kind of, a few action movies, also rom coms. So it's just kind of funny that she got her start in a thriller.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so interesting. I know because she had done like a period piece before, like early on in her career as well. And then Speed was also really early on in her career. So it's so interesting. I'm so excited to hear about your case file. So yours is first today.
Yes, I am talking about the one and only iconic Miss Congeniality.
We were doing this before we started recording the shoulder thing.
So I'm going to say iconic a lot because I feel like that's truly the best way to describe this. I will get into this of the why I find it cozy, but this is like one of my favorite early 2000s movies. It's so rewatchable. It's very quotable. I feel like it's held this cult following since then, particularly with millennials, but I feel like Gen Z has kind of approached it as well in more recent years. But if you have not, for some reason, seen it, I think
You
this is
should.
like her most popular movie or one of them. And I really toyed with doing this one versus Practical Magic, but Practical Magic can get a little spooky, not as cozy. So and obviously Miss Congeniality isn't what I would call cozy either. I'm definitely leaning more into the nostalgic side of our blanket fort, but I think it's a little cozier than Practical Magic in some aspects. But it is about Gracie Hart, who is an FBI special agent and essentially, and this is kind of the 2000s of it all, where she's quite a tomboy. She's very like
Oh, yeah.
rough and tough. They call her unpolished. She's clumsy, messy, just not a traditional girly girl. So she gets demoted because she does not follow protocol while on the job, and kind of gets stuck doing this desk job. And the FBI learns about a bomb threat at the Miss America beauty pageant. So they decide to put Gracie undercover as a pageant contestant. Essentially, the contestant for New Jersey sort of just kind of gets disqualified, sort of. They make her step down, and she takes her place as Gracie Lou Freebush is her
So funny.
undercover name.
That's one of
Um,
the things I really like about Sandra is she can do a lot of different things. Like we were talking about, she started in thrillers. She can do comedy. She's really good at
mhm.
physical comedy. Neither of ours is The Proposal, but I feel like in The Proposal, she's good at
Oh,
physical
that's a
comedy.
good one
I just,
too.
I just feel like she's very well rounded as an actor, and I feel like that's something that, for some reason, I feel like can be like a little bit more tricky in the physical comedy world.
Hmm.
But I feel like she just does it so well. To
Yes,
what
she
you're
does.
saying,
It's the timing, and then
yeah.
I will. I was going to talk about this later, but I'll pull it up now
Mm.
because it really fits. She and the actor who plays her partner slash love interest Benjamin Bratt actually did all of their own stunts in the movie.
Whoa, that's
They
cool.
only had stunt doubles and stunt coordinators on set to essentially make sure they were using the proper form, but it was all them, which I thought was really impressive. And just
Wow.
kind of to your point that she's really talented with the more physical side of things. So with Benjamin Bratt's character, Eric Matthews, which I was like, made me
I
swirl.
never connected that.
um, right? They enlist the help of Victor Melling, who is played by Michael Caine, and
So
he's just one
good.
of the best parts of the whole movie, in my opinion.
He absolutely is. He's so funny.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I love
I
him.
wrote this quote down just because I love it. The wear the crown, be the crown.
I love that. And then when she's like smuggling all of the donuts.
Yes, and she like pulls one out, all of them out from her little tight dress.
Yeah. That was so
Um,
good.
but they enlist him to kind of help get her pageant ready. They do a makeover. He does lessons. There's a scene where they're like walking through New York and he's like teaching her to glide, which is like the proper way of
So good.
walking. And then, so the movie essentially just follows Gracie's progress through the pageant, all the different rounds, and kind of them unfolding this case of the bomb and trying to figure out who it is, who's behind it, stopping it, all of those things. And in this segment, Gracie has to do a talent, and that's one thing they didn't really plan or prep for. So they, at one point, we're going to have her, they have her do these like glass musical
The
things,
water glasses,
but
yeah.
she also does a self-defense demonstration,
So good.
which is also a very iconic part of the movie. She uses the acronym SING, which goes solar
Solar plex,
plexus.
instep, nose, groin.
You got
I remember
it.
I remember that. So
But
good.
apparently that is a real thing in
Oh.
self-defense, but it's flipped. It's actually sign of the order that you're supposed to do it in.
Oh. So, solar plex, instep, groin, nose.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like as iconic, but I feel like it's because I'm used to yelling the other ones.
And I think too with like the like at the end where you just like really get them, that just like has a more impact and like the more
Yeah.
sensitive
Yeah. That's
area.
so good. So they did all that stunt too. That's
Mhm.
wild.
And so just some, I guess, a little behind the scenes tidbits from the movie. Um, Sandra Bullock is actually kind of clumsy in real life, that they really like embrace that part of her character. So much so that when Sandra Bullock was arriving at the premiere, she tripped getting out of her car, and
Oh.
people thought that was like on purpose and like part of her character.
They're like, she's doing a bit. She's like, yes, it
Yeah,
was
let's
all
go along with that.
planned. That's so funny.
And she actually, for those who have not seen it, there's a pretty famous scene. It's right after the makeover, and she's like strutting with them like all around her, and she's like, "Don't mess with me," and then immediately face plants. So
Yeah.
it felt like it was definitely a callback to that. Um, and the other line that gets quoted all of the time, one of the contestants is asked, "What is your answer to the perfect date?" And she's like, "April 25th. It's not too hot, not too cold. All you need is a light jacket." Um,
So good.
that is based on a real life answer from a real beauty pageant contestant. Um,
Oh.
but the April 25th specifically was selected as the date because the director, Donald Petrie, I think is how you pronounce it, that's his wife's birthday.
Well, everybody quotes it now. No,
Yeah,
no way to forget it.
right. I think that's such a memorable part of the movie, and I know it comes up kind of like on memes almost every year on
Yes.
that date. So
Yes.
loved
I
it.
also love that actor when I'm trying to think. Well, I guess we're at the like 20-year mark of this movie, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
spoil a single thing. But
24 came out in 2000.
really,
Yeah.
oh my heart. But it in the movie towards the end, Tracy has to grab the crown and
Hmm.
she pulls it away from somebody, and it's the same actress, and she's just like she's just like crying
Ugly
so
Craig. Yeah.
perfectly funny. I always think of that with her too. It's so
Yeah.
that in the what is it, like it's not bad girls wear red lipstick, but it's like the bad girls do the flames, or I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but they're talking about the batons, and
Yeah.
she's like, the bad girls have the fire and she always wanted the fire but she never got it, and
Well, that I didn't write this down, but I remembered seeing this in my research. They were going to have her do flames, but the actress was like, "Absolutely not. I'm not doing fire."
that's
So
scary.
they changed that so her character would actually have fire. Like they made that part of the storyline, 'cause she was like, no."
Whoa.
Which I
Yeah,
don't
honestly,
blame
it's
her,
scary.
especially if that's like
Yeah.
something you just learned how to do for this movie.
Mm-mm. Yeah, not a fan, not a fan of the fire, but man, this movie is so iconic. There's so many different quotes I keep thinking of.
Yeah. And then there is a sequel. I don't know, have you seen that one,
Mm.
Joy?
I have. I remember thinking it was entertaining. Did I think it was iconic? No.
Yeah.
It's also hard too because I felt like in the sequel, the progress that we got between her and her love interest, they just like chop
Wipe that
that
away.
down.
Hmm.
And then she gets a new partner who I liked. It's the same actor that was in what's the Hilary Duff one? Isn't she the
Oh,
like?
Regina King.
There you go.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
I love her so much, and
yeah, she
I
was good.
I think she definitely her and Gracie kinda carried that movie. Like, it was
Yeah,
definitely a
more
different vibe because they
goofy.
weren't, romantic partners, they were just, like, FBI, although maybe they could be romantic, we don't know. Um, but, yeah, it was one of those where it just kind of felt like a fan servicey type of
Yeah,
sequel.
yeah.
It just there felt like one too many like nods or winks to the audience, and it just I was like, I don't know if this needed to happen.
Yeah, I didn't love it as much as the first one. Honestly, unfortunately, the kind of vibes that it gave me was Legally Blonde 2, where it was
Mm,
like, it was okay. I didn't dislike it, but did I love it as much as I loved the first one? No.
yeah, I
And
feel
so
like that's
that's
the
where,
case for almost every sequel, to be honest.
yeah, I don't know why that is. I wonder if it's just, well, actually, my case file, they pitched to them to make a second one and they were like, no, where does the story go after this?
See,
And I was like,
I
thank
love when
you.
people
Yeah.
acknowledge that and they just like
Yeah.
end it where it
What we can
needs to
do.
end. We already told
Yeah.
the story we wanted to. I love that. So I have
Mhm.
one more little fact, and this is the connection to Lauren Graham.
Yes.
So the movie actually had a whole other storyline with Gracie's parents, and Ed Herman was playing her dad, but his scene was
Oh.
completely cut out, and because that storyline was removed for the movie. But
Oh.
he does appear in the original trailer, and I found it on YouTube. So after we're done recording, Joy, I'll play it for you, and then we can link it in our show notes so everyone else can see it too.
What? That's
Yeah,
amazing. That makes me so happy that they were like, "You look like you could be both of these actors' dads." And he's like,
right?
"Yes," because they have a very similar vibe, and I think part of it's just because I'm like, they have brown hair, I have brown hair, but also just their personalities and the things that we know about them, and also the things that we don't. Like, I kind of like that they're both Lauren and Sandra, like we're
Yeah.
friends, are pretty private
Well, we have
individuals,
met
and I feel like
Lauren.
we have, and I panicked,
Same.
but oh, so rough, so rough. But okay, again, she's known for forgetting things. So the fact that she remembered a thing, my brain was like, "You literally made a joke in your book that you forget things. How are you remembering this right now?" But that's all I was thinking during it. But anyway,
Love
oh,
it.
that's so cool. Yes, I'm very excited. I want to watch that trailer. How was it? A few scenes? Like, did it? Was there a mom or no?
Yes, so the mom actually dies is kind of like the storyline with
Mm.
that, and I wasn't for sure, but it kind of felt like the scene with her and Ed where it was shot at the mom's funeral, I think.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so her mom was a former FBI agent as well, and so that was kind of her motivation into being in the FBI,
Ah.
but they just kind of felt like that was sort of like holding the movie back and they couldn't move forward with the plot. But I am really curious to see how they would have tied that in. I kind of want like the alternate version because clear like they filmed it and everything and had
Yeah.
those scenes. So I just maybe they're on the DVD as like extended scenes. I have it on
I have the
DVD.
DVD. I should check
Yeah.
that. Interesting. I would love to see that just because I feel like I like a lot of times when there's behind the scenes, but I wonder if they were just like, this doesn't really add anything to
Hmm.
it. And so that's why it got cut.
Yeah. But it's kind of feels special just to have this like even just the one scene, this little extra content with
Yeah.
Ed Herman. So I thought it was really sweet. But
Aw.
to wrap up, I find it cozy mostly for the nostalgia. This was one of those movies that I like remember watching at sleepovers in the 2000s, like with all my friends, and where you
Mhm.
would try to learn the choreography from the dance where they're
Yes.
all like dressed up as Lady Liberty. And we talked about it, but the shoulder.
Yeah, there's a lot of I've seen a few videos pop up. I wonder if it's because it knew we were going to talk about Sandra Bullock, but at weddings where like all of the what is it? Not the groomsmen, the maids of honor, and all of them will do the
I
dance.
just saw that like a
It
week or
knew.
so ago. Yeah.
It knew. I was like, oh, that's
Our phones are
hilarious.
listening.
I know. They know. That's okay. You can send me all the Sandra Bullock you want. I'm happy to watch.
Truly. But let's get into your case file.
Yes, my case file is from 1995, and it is While You Were Sleeping. It
Ah,
is one of my favorites. It is such a good movie of hers. And I was like, don't say the tidbit yet. But it was her first ever rom com. So
yeah.
that is wild because she had done like Speed, and you were talking about the Thriller before, but she had
Mhm.
never done a rom-com. And so I feel like, especially for the first out of the gate, this is one of her most successful movies from everything that
Mhm.
I saw. So it took 18 million to make, and it made
Wow.
180 million. It made 10 times the amount
Oh
it
my
took to
gosh,
make.
and that's I
Wild
feel
in
like
the
that's a
90s.
pretty big yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty big deal for back then. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. It got her a nomination for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical. She didn't win for that, but it also got her a nomination, which I feel like just again walking into a role that you haven't walked into before in the romantic comedy scene, she just does so well.
Yeah.
So the plot of the movie is basically there's it's so funny because in the few of the interviews that I saw, 'cause she works in, well, I guess she doesn't work in it, but in Speed she drives the bus, and then in this movie she is a train track fare token taker, and so she's like,
Oh.
I guess I'm just the public transportation lady. I was like,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
hilarious. So it is set in Chicago, but it was originally going to be set in New York, which makes more sense for one of the characters if you know that guy, which I'll explain in a second. But it's set in Chicago in the time period, so it's set in the 90s. It's a romantic comedy about a woman who works on a train track as a fare token collector and saves a man from a train who she basically has been like watching him take the train every day, and she's like, just love him. And she kind of like is like fantasizing
So
about like
she's
what
a
their
little
lives would
stalker.
be. Yeah. Yeah, she's just watching him every day, but he falls onto the train track and she's like, and so she saves his life because the train
Mhm.
is coming. So she jumps onto the train track, and then they take him to the hospital, and they won't let her see him because they're family only. And she's like, I am family. He's my fiance.
Mm,
And then
of
they just get,
course.
exactly. She kind of gets caught up in the lie, and then the family shows up, and then she really loves the family. I am going to do a few spoilers because I feel like you kind of need to know it for the plot of the movie.
That's fair.
But yeah, so the guy that she originally really likes is in a coma for basically the whole movie, which is funny because some of the behind the scenes is him talking about how he basically would just like try to fall asleep so he looked like he was in a coma.
Oh,
And I'm like,
no.
if you get paid to sleep, that's the best job ever.
Right?
But really, she's slowly falling in love with his brother, who is played by Bill Pullman, who was in Independence Day. He was not Star Lord, the other. Sorry if you loved the Spaceballs movie, but he was in Spaceballs as the main character as well. Um, and I feel like their chemistry is really good. So it's basically like, okay, well, she says she's engaged to this guy. She's never really talked to this guy. Well, now she's falling in love with his brother. What does that look like? And what do you do? And it's a really good setup for a rom-com in that what happens, where do we go from here? A few of the fun behind the scenes are originally the plot was reversed. And so it was like a female goes into a coma and then the man saying he's engaged and what does that look like? And the role was first pitched to um who was it? There was a few of them that were pitched to. So they almost cast Meg Ryan. They almost
Mm.
cast Demi Moore. They almost cast Julia Roberts.
I like going
So
through the list.
yeah, so there was a lot of options for the role, but Sandra Bullock, I think, even like wrote in a letter saying that she felt like she really connected with this character and like, please let me have this part. And she, I think, was perfect in it. For Bill Pullman's character, they first were thinking Dennis Quaid, and then they were
Mm.
thinking Patrick Swayze. So that's also a
Mm.
very, very different movie if you start swapping around those characters.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And then for the dreamboat in the coma, they first were writing it thinking of Pierce Brosnan, which is so funny because they got very similar like vibes to what they
Yeah.
were looking for, but I feel like everybody clicked into the role really well the way that it was, like the way
Yeah.
that it ended up. Um, and this movie is set during Christmas time. So you basically watch it through Christmas and I think also New Year's. It's been a minute since I've seen the movie. But they first did not have it set during Christmas. And then the studio was like, this will be more marketable if you can set it during like a fun holiday time. And so they did switch
Yeah.
that, which is so interesting because that's one of the reasons why I think it's cozy because of the vibes and the feeling and the cold out. But then there's Christmas tree. There's a scene where she's like decorating her Christmas tree. She meets the family at one point. She kind of goes to their house, I believe, for Christmas. They also did not have it originally set in Chicago, even though it was filmed in Chicago area. They were going to have it set in New York, which
Mhm.
makes more sense knowing that she has this upstairs neighbor who feels very New York. Like he doesn't feel Chicago at all when he's like all of his lines and everything. But knowing that they were going to set it in New York, I'm like, okay, that makes more sense for that
Yeah.
character who is basically kind of like in love with her, trying to get her to date him. So it's very good. It's a good comedy. It's very lighthearted. There's a scene where it is so cold at night that she's walking back home with Bill and they slip on the ice, and it was actually like 60 or 70 degrees that day. And so they had all this padding on and they had to just create the ice,
Hmm.
and then you can't really slip correctly on ice. So they kind of just had to keep filming it until it made sense and like the physical comedy worked.
Oh
And so it
man,
was a fun behind the scenes.
that's really
Also,
funny.
right? Also, the house that the family is in did go up for sale in 2018. So you could have bought it if you
Wow.
had $837,000
You
back
know,
in 2018.
that honestly was less than what I was expecting. I don't know. I was ready
Yeah,
for like
that's true.
millions and millions.
Right, right. It is a beautiful house, though. I saw the listing because I was like, "Oh, it was up for sale." So I was like, "Can I
Yeah.
find it?" And it's a beautiful house. It looks very 90s. It is very iconic. And I like that they filmed in different areas. Like in an
Hmm.
interview, Bill was talking about how when they're walking along a river and that was freezing, but they had to pretend it was like spring, so they're not wearing coats. And so I feel like, again, kind of like I talked about what will be, I believe, last week or maybe last week in posting it. My brain can't remember, but the Mummy, about how they're filming
This week
on
of
the set
posting.
this week of posting. Okay. Um, they are filming on location in all these different areas, and I feel like it just gives that realness to it
Hmm.
as well. And
Yeah.
I like that they did set it in Chicago because I don't really know how I mean, I'm sure it's in movies, but making Chicago, New York just feels kind of confusing to me,
Yeah, I
you know?
do appreciate though when movies pick a city outside of New York, especially for rom-coms, because I
Yeah.
feel like New York is kind of overdone at this point. So I
True.
appreciate when they do other cities. Um, I didn't mention this for my case file, but
Ooh.
a big part of it takes place in San Antonio, Texas, which as a
Mm.
Texas girly, I appreciated. And they actually filmed a lot of it in Austin, which
Mm.
isn't super far from San Antonio, but far enough. So I don't know. I like when they do it outside of like the regular New York sphere.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like it just brings another town to like, 'cause I've never been to Chicago, but it's fun to see Chicago
It's a
through the
cool
movies.
city.
That's what I've heard. I've actually even heard it specifically for autumn because I think they have a lot of good, like, pumpkin festival
Yeah,
things.
and it's right on the lake, so you get kind of those nice the lake effect kind of chill, which
Ooh.
isn't great for everyone, but I think if you're going for the fall vibes, I think that would be
Yeah.
really nice. Although I saw recently, this is funny that we were talking about Chicago specifically, but I got a video of someone who was like, it's still 78 degrees in Chicago in the end of October, which I guess for them is
Oof.
a pretty big deal too. Although I'd love for it to be 78.
Right? I know, it finally has cooled down here, which I'm glad because there's this one tree I love watching out of my window, and I actually didn't know trees could do this because it hasn't done that until this year, but it went from, like, the green to, like, a darker, kinda muddy red, and then
Hmm.
I feel like because it got colder, it got more vibrant red. I didn't know it could, like,
Ooh,
reverse like that,
I like
but
that.
it's pretty today, so I love
Yeah.
it. And a fun fact is Bill Pullman lost the girl to Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle, but then he potentially gets the girl in this movie, so that's another, like, what if they had cast him and Meg Ryan again, but, like, as another couple?
Yeah, that
I
would have
just
been
thought that
funny.
right? Just, like, another, like, weird circle happening there. Um, but I felt like for me, this movie, the coziness of it is some of that 90s aesthetic. It has some of the 90s clothes, it has some of the 90s feel. It's a really wholesome movie as well. One of the things that Sandra Bullock, I think, wrote in the letter of like, please let me be this part, was that she really connected to the character in not in a bad way, the loneliness, but it's basically a character that just works all the time, doesn't really have that family connection. And
Mhm.
then through being in a comedic way brought into this family, she's like meeting with them for holidays and they're asking her things. And like she gets a present, which she hasn't gotten. And it kind of gave me similar vibes of, of the proposal
Yeah, I
where
was
she's
thinking
talking
that
about that.
too. Mhm.
Yeah, and so I just feel like bringing the family aspect into it is really sweet. There's a grandma who's again funny. There's just the lighthearted nature of things and the kind of reaching for your dreams because Bill Pullman's character is not reaching for his dreams and his career and kind of like, okay, well, what would it look like if I did that? And how do
Mm.
I step out of that? And he's kind of been in the shadow of his brother in his mind for a while as well, because his brother's like the good looking one and the successful one. And so just like, what does that mean? And I don't know. I just feel like it gives very good, cozy 90s vibes, especially around Christmas, around the
Mhm.
holidays, which is why this is coming out around that time. But I think you could watch it whenever. But that is while you were sleeping.
I love
And why? I
it.
love it. And I think you
Maybe
should watch it.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think I'll put it on my once we finish our fall movie list, we're gonna start on a Christmas one, so I think it's gonna
Yeah.
make the cut.
As of recording this, I believe it's on Disney Plus, which is
Oh,
kind of
okay.
interesting because I don't think it was on Netflix when I checked, but Disney Plus had it, ironically. I guess it's a Disney based company film. Actually, that would make sense because Disney, I think, was the one that asked for it to be set during Christmas time. And I
Ah,
was like, I
okay.
don't get why that was, but now I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, because I don't know who actually was the like creator of it, but
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. It's very fun. And she has some great clothes in it too.
Love it. Well, speaking of Christmas, tell me
Yeah.
about your 2%.
I'm excited about it. It is inspired by you. I have never gotten an advent calendar before, but you
Yay.
get one every year. And I was like, I want to do it. It just sounds really fun. I went to World Market, which is,
Mhm.
I think, where you got yours. And
Yes.
I was having a trouble of a time. I tell you
Oh,
what,
no.
just because there's a lot of candy ones. I
Yeah.
just was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could do like a chocolate a day." Like I was like, "Oof, that seems like a lot." And I love the one that you get, but I feel like I would just end up putting. It's okay if I say it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, it's like the jam one. What's the
Mhm.
brand again?
On Maman. I think I
On
talked
Mama.
about it, like, episodes back,
Okay,
but yeah,
I
I
I
really enjoy
just
it.
right. I saw that one. I just was like, I don't think I'm creative enough in that aspect of like the cooking aspect to do that. I just would have it on toast every day,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, I'm over jelly by the end of this. But I have been doing a lot of teas, and there was a few different tea ones, but I did get a tea one.
Ooh,
I
I'm
got
so excited to see
reaches far
it.
away. I got this one.
Is that the oh my god, I almost texted you about that one because that
Really?
tea brand is from England, and it's
That's why I got it.
yeah, I went to, like they have a really big shop in, Covent Garden in London,
Heck yeah.
and yeah, it's very good quality, so I think you're
Okay.
gonna enjoy it. I literally
Very
saw
excited.
that one, and I almost texted you, like, "They have this great one," so just love that we
Ah!
were connected.
Yes, because that was the other thing is this was the only I'm not gonna lie to you, this was the only one where I was like, "Okay, I think I'll really enjoy this," because they had
Yeah,
another tea one, but, like, the whole point of World Market to me is to get it from the different areas of the world, and
right.
that one was just like I don't know where area it was from, but the vibes of it didn't feel right. So, I gave both boxes to my husband, and I was like, "I don't wanna spoil this for myself, so read the backs, and which one do you think I'll like more?" And he was like, "Go this one." So, all
Perfect.
3 of
He
us were on the
knew.
same page. But it's really cute, and it doesn't actually spoil
Yeah.
anything, but if you open it, it's got the little days,
Oh,
and I
so
think
pretty.
it's 2 per day or
Oh,
something. I don't think I'll
wow.
have 2 per day, but I'm excited, and it smells really good, I'll tell you what. So, I think I'm gonna start it earlier because we kinda flip-flop which house we go to for
Mhm.
Christmas, so we'll be out of here before Christmas this year, and so I think I'm gonna start it, like, mid-November,
Ooh,
maybe? So I'm not
yeah.
even following the full rules my first time around, but, nah, no
Eh,
surprise there.
it's no big deal. As long as you
But
enjoy it, that's all that counts.
right? But I'm excited, and I'll end up sharing what my faves are once I get there,
Please
but
do.
that's my plan. Do you do I mean, obviously, probably, but do you do the full 25 days, like, of December? Is that's typically the vibe, right?
Yeah, well, it was funny because you were saying that you were gonna start yours earlier because of, like, going out of town, and then for us, we usually go past Christmas as, like, a way to
Mm,
extend the Christmas vibes and the
cute.
merriment because it is hard sometimes when, like, life just gets busy to do one every single day, um, but I'm so excited. Keep us updated on all the tea
Yeah,
flavors. Maybe we could do, like, a little on our Instagram story every time we get a new
cute.
flavor, we can each kinda share. I know it won't
Unboxing.
line up, but yeah, I think that could be really fun.
I like it. Yeah, I think that would be really fun to do because I was thinking about that is it would be fun to share what the different ones are because I always enjoy seeing those for the other advent calendars,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe. So mid-November. If you see me start opening this on Instagram.
We won't tell.
Oh, that's funny. What's your 2%?
So mine is going a little back in time from when people are listening to this. So mine centers a different holiday, one that is not passed in our world, but has already passed in our Cozy Detectives world as of listening to this. But I talked about this on our How to Have a Cozy Fall. I mentioned
Ooh.
that we do it every year, but it is where we dry flowers and add them to a pumpkin to decorate. So I have mine with me.
Exciting.
Ta-da!
Oh, it's so cute. Yeah, because you said you were gonna kind of Mod Podge it a different way this year. Did you like this way better?
Yeah, it was still a little hard. Like you can kind of see some of them are kind of flapping, sticking
Mm.
up. I think it's just the way that
Aw.
when you dry flowers, they get really kind of rigid. And then
Yeah.
I don't want to like shake and have this big loud sound as they get put down. But the way a pumpkin is just shaped, sometimes they don't always wrap around
Yeah.
or lay correctly. So but yeah, I think it was
Aw.
still easier overall and just a nice little fun fall touch to our home. So
Cute. Do you put it outside your door or do you leave it inside the
we
house?
leave it inside, just
I do
you
that
never know
too.
who might come around and just keep it. And like, because we use real flowers, if you'd have to
Oh,
get kind of
yeah.
closer to smell, but you can still kind of smell that nice floral scent. So that's nice as well.
Oh, I like that. I know that's the one thing about fall that I am not great at is decorating the outside in my house. I feel like I'm like really good and I really enjoy decorating the inside. For Christmas, I feel better because I've got like a box set that I can put around the door and like
Yeah.
put lights up and things. But I feel like for fall, I'm like, here is a wreath because the pumpkins, I don't know. I just feel like to do the whole pumpkin step thing or like pumpkin door thing. I'm not quite there yet. But that
Yeah.
is a goal for future because I would love that, especially with kiddos. I feel like that'd be super fun. And
Yeah.
that was one of my tips about putting like the zip ties around the pumpkins. And I'm like, ooh, that doesn't seem too hard. So
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
that's
that
next year.
was a perfect segue into one of our Cozy
Wow.
Detectives 2%. It's just so funny because like you don't know which ones I'm sharing. And so you're like, let me talk about decorating outside. And I have one for that. So
Ooh.
at Taylor Lynn Rhodes picked out a pumpkin for their front porch for their 2%. So I
Cute.
loved it that again, that little simple, just adding a bit
Yeah.
of the current season to your life. It's a great way to just add in a little bit of extra coziness for you. And then we have Callie's Cozy Bookshelf, which already obsessed with that
Love
username,
the name.
has been using a heating pad and blanket while working from home to add a little
Ooh.
bit extra coziness and warmth, which I love all of those like work coziness tips because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an area, at least personally in my life, I tend to lack in coziness. So I really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
then she's also been doing something that I really love. It's one of my favorite cozy things
Ooh.
of while reading to have one of those ambience videos that I talked about a while ago playing in the
Nice.
background. So oh, it just adds that perfect little cozy touch. So I'm like, Callie, you are onto something here.
I love it. I love was it a heating pad and heated blanket or heating pad and blanket?
I think it was heating pad and blanket, but I do
Ooh.
have a heated blanket
I was just gonna
and I
say, I
really enjoy
love
using
it.
it.
Yes. I feel like I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's the area I live in, I don't know if it's a combo, but I get so cold in the evenings in winter, and I'm sure it'll pop up later, so if you hear this later as my 2%, just ignore what I'm saying right now, but I love putting my blanket on my bed and starting the heated blanket like an hour before maybe I go to sleep because then you like get ready to go to sleep and your bed's
All
already like
toasty.
pre-warm. Ah,
Mhm.
it's so nice, especially when it's so cold outside.
Yeah.
'Cause, oof, I just
I
freeze.
so I live in Texas, so it doesn't always get super cold here most of the time, especially this year. I'm just gonna be bitter about it. Keep mentioning I'm sorry, but I'm salty. But we don't really ever turn our heater on, so it can get
Mm.
a little chilly in the more winter months, but that's my favorite way of sleeping because I don't like being warm. So I'll just get it kind of like that pre-toast you talked about. So it's good. I can fall asleep without being too hot but also not freezing.
Yes. Yeah, I don't keep it on overnight. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not good at reading that little tag you're supposed to read for a heated blanket, but I don't think you're supposed to keep it on overnight,
Yeah,
so I
probably
don't.
not.
I
Yeah, and
just
you
make
and I
sure
have
that's
that big
important.
fire fear, so
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what that is. It's still like some TV show we both watched in the 90s or something, or
probably, yeah.
I don't know. But yes, I love that. I actually really like a heating pad too, because especially depending on the time of the month, it
Yeah.
just helps so much for
Yeah,
me personally. So yes. Oh, so fun.
I
Well, thank
know.
you for listening this week to us. If you want to submit your 2% cozy, you can do that two ways via our email, which will be in the description. This is so random, but there's a YouTube channel that they call it the doobly doo. And so my brain was about to call it that. And I was like, don't do that.
Oh,
Um,
no.
if you watch, I think it's the Vlogbrothers. Wow, I haven't watched them in the longest time. But
Oh my
anyway,
gosh, yeah,
remember
I know what
them?
you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? I was like, we should have come up with a name for that, because my brain was like, think of something, and my brain just went doobly doo, and I was like, that's not it. but but you can send us an email with your 2%, and if you want to include a photo, that would be wonderful, because we would love to
Please do.
share it, because
Yeah.
that's just really fun to see, like, in your environment, your coziness. Or you can send us a DM on Instagram, where you could also send us a photo as well. And
Yes.
speaking of Instagram, you can find us on Instagram at Blanket Fort Files Pod. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd appreciate your feedback, so leave us a review. Also follow us on YouTube too, because you can see us move and that we're real people, you know? It really does help us out. And then join us next week in the Blanket Fort, where we're going to discuss the coziness of another 90s show, Friends.
So ready to talk about this one and our favorite episodes
Yeah.
and all of the things.
I'm ready. I don't skip the intro either, because you got to do the clap.